Detective Marcus Hartwell adjusted his gold watch, a gift from a grateful businessman whose warehouse fire had been deemed accidental, and surveyed the crime scene with practiced indifference. The broken window of Chen's Electronics told a story he'd already decided to ignore. Third robbery this month in Chinatown, and like the others, this one would quietly disappear into the maze of paperwork that somehow never quite made it to the district attorney's office. "Looks like kids," Hartwell announced to his rookie partner, Officer Sarah Martinez, who was carefully photographing evidence. "Probably won't find much." Martinez frowned, crouching beside a clear boot print in the mud. "Sir, this looks like a size 12 tactical boot. And see this?" She pointed to scratches around the lock. "These are professional marks. Someone knew exactly what they were doing." Hartwell's jaw tightened. Martinez was sharp, too sharp for her own good. In his 15 years on the force, he'd learned that curiosity was a dangerous trait in a partner. "Martinez, you're overthinking this. File it as a B&E, probably juveniles. Case closed." But Martinez wasn't listening. She was staring at something that made Hartwell's blood run cold. A partial muddy footprint on the sidewalk that matched the one inside the store. The print led directly to where Hartwell had parked his patrol car. "Detective," she said slowly, "we need to talk." The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the street as Hartwell realized his carefully constructed world was about to crumble. For 5 years, he'd been skimming money from evidence lockers, taking cuts from local bookmakers and ensuring certain cases never saw the inside of a courtroom. The system had made him comfortable, complacent. He'd grown sloppy. Martinez stood up, her young face a mixture of disbelief and growing horror. "The boot print inside matches yours exactly. And your car was here last night. I can see the surveillance. Camera from Kim's restaurant pointing right at this spot." Hartwell felt the familiar weight of his service weapon. The same gun that had accidentally misfired during a drug bust, eliminating the only witness who could have testified against his benefactor, Vincent Torino. His mind raced through possibilities. Convince her to stay quiet, transfer her to another district, make her disappear entirely. "Martinez," he said carefully, "you're new to this precinct. You don't understand how things work here. Some cases are better left alone. Some questions shouldn't be asked." "Are you threatening me, Detective?" The word hung in the air like smoke, from a discharged weapon. Threatening. As if everything he'd done over the past 5 years hadn't been one long, elaborate threat against the very people he'd sworn to protect and serve. "I'm giving you advice," Hartwell replied, stepping closer. "Good advice, the kind that keeps careers intact and bodies breathing." Martinez's hand moved instinctively to her radio, but Hartwell was faster. He grabbed her wrist, his grip tight, enough to leave marks. "You're going to file this report exactly as I told you. B&E, juveniles, case closed, and you're going to forget what you think you saw here." But as Martinez looked into his eyes, Hartwell saw something that chilled him, more than fear or compliance, determination. She wasn't going to back down. She wasn't going to disappear quietly into the machine that had corrupted him. "Let go of me, Detective," she said quietly. "Right now." The storm was coming, and Marcus Hartwell was standing directly in its path. "Officer." Sarah Martinez sat in her cramped apartment that night, staring at the photographs she'd taken before Hartwell could confiscate them. Her hands trembled slightly as she spread the images across her kitchen table, each one a piece of evidence that could destroy a decorated detective's career, or end her own life. The boot print was unmistakable. Size 12, Magnum tactical boot, worn on the outside edge from years of patrol walking, with a distinctive nick in the heel that matched Hartwell's exactly. She'd memorized every detail of her partner's equipment during their 3 months together, noting his habits, his shortcuts, his casual disregard for proper procedure. Her phone buzzed, a text from her mother asking about her first year on the force. Martinez almost laughed at the bitter irony. She'd joined the police to make a difference, to be one of the good ones. Now she was sitting alone in the dark, afraid to turn on the lights, wondering if her own partner might kill her to protect his secrets. A soft knock at her door made her freeze. It was past midnight. Martinez? It's me. Hartwell's voice was muffled but unmistakable. We need to talk. She quickly gathered the photographs, shoving them into a manila envelope. Through the peephole, she could see Hartwell standing in the hallway, no longer wearing his uniform. He looked smaller somehow, older, with the haunted expression of a man whose past was catching up to him. I know you're in there, Sarah. Please, just open the door. Against her better judgment, she unlocked the deadbolt but kept the chain engaged. What do you want, Marcus? His face appeared in the narrow gap and she was shocked to see tears in his eyes. It wasn't supposed to be like this. None of it. It started small, just looking the other way on a parking ticket for a guy who helped me out. Then it was evidence that went missing, cases that got buried. Before I knew it, I was in so deep. How deep? Martinez asked. Hartwell laughed bitterly. Vincent Torino owns half the judges in this county. The other half are too scared to cross him. I've been feeding him information for 5 years. Who's investigating what? Which witnesses need to disappear? Which evidence needs to vanish? Martinez felt sick. The Chen robbery wasn't random, was it? Chen was getting too close to Torino's money laundering operation. He had records, receipts, names. The robbery was supposed to look random, but I needed those specific documents. Hartwell's voice cracked. I never meant for it to go this far. How many other crimes, Marcus? How many other victims? The silence stretched between them like a chasm. When Hartwell finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. 17. 17 cases I've buried or manipulated. 3 witnesses who disappeared. 2 who died in accidents that weren't accidents. Martinez's hands shook as she processed the magnitude of his confession. This wasn't just corruption. It was accessory to murder. Why are you telling me this? Because Torino knows about you now. He knows you saw the evidence. He's coming for you, Sarah, and I can't stop him. Hartwell pressed his face against the gap in the door. But I can help you survive this. We can make a deal. What kind of deal? You disappear. Tonight, I'll tell Torino you've been transferred to another state, that the case has been closed. You get a new life and I'll try to find a way out of this mess. Martinez stared at him, seeing clearly for the first time the broken man behind the badge. Or you'll be found dead in your apartment tomorrow morning. Another tragic case of a young officer who couldn't handle the stress of the job. The threat hung in the air between them. But Martinez realized something important. Hartwell was more afraid than she was. He wasn't here to kill her. He was here to beg her to run so he wouldn't have to watch her die. There's a third option, Marcus, she said quietly. What's that? We take down Torino together, all of it. Everything you know, everyone involved. We end this. Hartwell stared at her through the gap, and for a moment she saw a flicker of the man he might have been before corruption consumed him. Then his face hardened. You don't understand what you're asking. Torino has cops, judges, prosecutors on his payroll. He has people killed for sport. If we move against him, then we make sure we don't miss. Martinez replied. Because I'm not running, Marcus, and I'm not dying quietly. The war for Detective Marcus Hartwell's soul was about to begin. Detective Marcus Hartwell hadn't slept in 36 hours. He sat in his car outside the abandoned warehouse where Vincent Torino conducted his most sensitive business, watching Martinez through binoculars as she planted recording devices with the precision of a trained operative. She'd convinced him to wear a wire, to gather evidence against the man who'd owned him for 5 years. His hands shook as he adjusted the tiny transmitter taped to his chest. In 2 hours, he would walk into that warehouse for what Torino believed was a routine meeting about the Martinez problem. Instead, he would be recording a confession that would bring down the most powerful criminal organization in the city. The irony wasn't lost on him. The rookie partner he'd tried to silence was now the only person standing between him and certain death. Testing. Martinez's voice crackled through his earpiece. Can you hear me? Clear as day, Hartwell replied, surprised by how steady his own voice sounded. Remember, you need him to admit to the murders. Not just the corruption, the actual killings. Detective Williams, Officer Park, that witness from the Kowalski case. Without those confessions, He walks on the other charges. Hartwell closed his eyes thinking about his fellow officers who died because they'd gotten too close to the truth. Williams had been his first partner, a 20-year veteran with grandchildren. Park had been younger than Martinez, full of idealism and hope. Both had died in accidents that Hartwell could have prevented if he'd found his courage sooner. "What if he doesn't confess?" Hartwell asked. "Then we're both dead by morning," Martinez replied matter-of-factly. "But at least we'll die trying to do the right thing." Her words hit him like a physical blow. When had he become the kind of man who needed a rookie to teach him about courage? When had survival become more important than justice? "Sarah," he said quietly, "if this goes wrong, if I don't make it out, there's a safety deposit box at First National. Keys taped under my desk drawer. Everything's in there. Names, dates, evidence I've been collecting as insurance. Promise me you'll use it." "You're going to make it out, Marcus, we both are." But Hartwell knew better. Men like Vincent Torino didn't survive by trusting people who'd betrayed them once. Even if the recording went perfectly, even if they managed to bring down the entire organization, Torino would find a way to reach him. In prison, on the street, in witness protection, nowhere would be far enough. His phone buzzed with a text. "Time to clean up loose ends. Warehouse, now. V." "He's ready for me," Hartwell said into his wire. "Remember, keep him talking. Get him to reminisce about the old days, the people who crossed him. Criminals love to brag about their victories." Hartwell started his car, his mind drifting to his ex-wife, Linda, who'd left him 3 years ago when she couldn't ignore what he'd become. She'd begged him to quit the force, to start over somewhere clean. Instead, he'd chosen the money, the easy life, the path of least resistance. Now he was driving toward a confrontation that would either redeem him or destroy him completely. The warehouse loomed ahead, its broken windows like dead eyes watching his approach. 3 black SUVs were parked outside, more security than usual. Torino was taking no chances. "Increased security," Hartwell reported. "At least 6 men, maybe more inside. I've got sniper support positioned on the adjacent building," Martinez replied. "SWAT is standing by 2 blocks away. Just get the confession and get out." Hartwell parked and walked toward the entrance, each step feeling like a march toward his own execution. The security guard, a massive man with gold teeth, patted him down roughly but missed the wire hidden beneath his bulletproof vest. Inside, Vincent Torino sat behind a makeshift desk, his silver hair immaculately styled despite the industrial surroundings. He looked like what he was, a businessman who happened to trade in murder and corruption rather than stocks and bonds. "Marcus," Torino smiled, but his eyes remained cold. "My oldest and most reliable friend, come, sit. We have much to discuss." Hartwell took a seat across from him, acutely aware of the armed men positioned around the warehouse's perimeter. "You said there was a problem with Martinez." "Indeed. A problem that requires a permanent solution." Torino leaned forward, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Just like Williams, just like Park, just like that witness who thought he could testify against me." The confession had begun, and there was no turning back now. Vincent Torino poured 2 glasses of expensive whiskey, sliding one across the metal desk to Detective Hartwell. The amber liquid caught the harsh warehouse lighting, and Hartwell noticed his hand trembling slightly as he reached for the glass. Every word was being recorded now, every confession another nail in Torino's coffin, if they both lived long enough to see it used. To loyalty, Torino raised his glass in a mock toast. A quality so rare in today's world, Hartwell forced himself to drink, the whiskey burning his throat. "Martinez won't be a problem anymore. I can handle her quietly." Torino's laugh was sharp and cruel. "Oh, Marcus. Still trying to be the hero, aren't you? Still believing you have some control over this situation?" He leaned back in his chair, studying Hartwell like a predator evaluating prey. "Do you remember Detective Williams? 20-year veteran, grandfather of 4? Of course I remember him. He thought he could gather evidence against me too. Thought he was clever, working alone, building a case from the shadows." Torino's eyes gleamed with sadistic pleasure. The brake line on his car was surprisingly easy to access. One small cut, and 20 years of police work ended wrapped around a telephone pole. Hartwell's blood ran cold, but he forced himself to remain calm. In his earpiece, he could hear Martinez breathing steadily, recording every word. Accidents happen. Accidents, Torino repeated, savoring the word. Yes, Officer Park's accident was particularly creative. A gas leak in his apartment, such a tragic way for a young man to die. The explosion was visible from 3 blocks away. The wire felt like it was burning against Hartwell's chest. Park had been 24 years old, engaged to his college sweetheart, planning a summer wedding that would never happen. And the witness from the Kowalski case, Hartwell asked, hating himself for pushing but knowing they needed the complete confession. Ah, Thomas Chen, not to be confused with our recent electronics store proprietor. Torino chuckled at his own joke. Thomas thought witness protection would keep him safe. Foolish man didn't realize I had friends in the Marshal Service. His new identity lasted exactly 6 months before my associates found him in Denver, made it look like a robbery gone wrong. Through his earpiece, Hartwell heard Martinez whisper, "That's enough, we have everything we need." But Torino wasn't finished. He stood and walked to the window, gazing out at the city lights. 5 years, Marcus. 5 years you've been my inside man, and you've done exceptional work. The information you've provided has saved me millions of dollars and eliminated dozens of problems. Just doing my job, Hartwell replied, the words tasting like poison. Your job. Torino turned back to face him, and Hartwell saw something new in the crime boss's expression. Suspicion. Tell me, Marcus, what exactly is your job today? The question hung in the air like a loaded gun. Hartwell felt sweat beading on his forehead despite the warehouse's chill. I don't know what you mean. Your partner, Officer Martinez, she's been asking questions about you, about your methods, your cases, your extracurricular activities. Torino walked slowly back to his desk, each step deliberate and threatening. And now suddenly, you're here asking me to reminisce about old murders. Very specific murders. Almost as if someone wanted me to confess to them. Hartwell's hand moved instinctively toward his weapon, but Torino's men were faster. Red laser. Dots appeared on Hartwell's chest as 4 rifles trained on him from the shadows. I'm disappointed, Marcus. Truly disappointed. I trusted you. Vincent, you're being paranoid. Strip off your shirt. The command was delivered in the same tone Torino might use to order lunch, but Hartwell heard the death sentence beneath. Tmoy, in his earpiece, Martinez's voice was urgent. SWAT is moving. Hold on, Marcus. I said strip off your shirt. Now. Hartwell stood slowly, his mind racing through possibilities. None of them ended well. Vincent, let's talk about this. The first gunshot shattered the warehouse's silence, but it didn't come from Torino's men. The window behind the crime boss exploded inward as Martinez's sniper support opened fire. Torino dove for cover as chaos erupted throughout the warehouse. Go, go, go! Martinez's voice screamed through the earpiece as SWAT teams burst through multiple entrances, their tactical lights cutting through the darkness like white-hot swords. Hartwell rolled behind, an overturned table as bullets flew in every direction. Through the mayhem, he could see Torino crawling toward a back exit, his empire crumbling around him in a symphony of gunfire and shouted commands. Torino's heading for the south exit, Hartwell shouted into his wire, then drew his weapon and joined the fight that would determine whether justice or corruption would prevail. The reckoning had begun, and there would be no going back. The gunfight in the warehouse lasted exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds. But to Detective Marcus Hartwell, it felt like hours. He pressed himself against the cold concrete floor as bullets whined overhead, the taste of dust and gunpowder filling his mouth. Through the chaos, he watched Vincent Torino crawl desperately toward the rear exit, leaving a trail of blood from a shoulder wound. Torino's hit, but mobile, Hartwell shouted into his wire, then broke cover to pursue the crime boss who had owned his soul for 5 years. Behind him, SWAT officers systematically neutralized Torino's security team. The warehouse echoed with the sharp crack of weapons, fire, the crash of overturning equipment, and the shouted commands of tactical officers. But Hartwell's focus had narrowed to a single point. the man who had turned him into a murderer by proxy. He caught Torino at the back door, grabbing the older man's injured shoulder and spinning him around. Up close, the crime boss looked smaller, more fragile, just another aging criminal whose empire was collapsing. "It's over, Vincent," Hartwell said, pressing his service weapon against Torino's chest. Torino laughed, blood speckling his lips. "Is it? You think arresting me changes anything? You think it erases what you've done?" His eyes glittered with malicious satisfaction. "You're still a murderer, Marcus. Those 3 people are still dead because of you." The words hit Hartwell like physical blows. Williams, Park, and Thomas Chen, their faces haunted his dreams, their deaths weighing on his conscience like stones. "I know what I am." "Do you?" "Because I don't think you understand yet. Prison won't absolve you. Testimony won't bring them back. You'll carry their blood until the day you die, and everyone will know that Detective Marcus Hartwell was just another dirty cop who sold his badge to the highest bidder." Hartwell's finger tightened on the trigger. It would be so easy. One shot, one moment of violence to end years of corruption and guilt. Torino seemed to sense his thoughts and smiled wider. "Go ahead, kill me, become everything you've already proven yourself to be. Marcus, don't." Officer Martinez's voice came from behind him, calm but urgent. She approached slowly, her weapon drawn but pointed downward. "He's not worth it." "He killed them," Hartwell said without turning around. "Williams, Park, Chen, all dead because I fed him information. And killing him won't bring them back." Hartwell's vision blurred with tears he'd been holding back for months. "I can't live with what I've done, Sarah. Every morning I wake up and remember that I'm responsible for their deaths. I'm supposed to protect people, and instead You're protecting people now," Martinez interrupted, stepping closer. "Your testimony is going to put away dozens of corrupt officials. The information in your safety deposit box will solve 17 open cases and bring justice to 17 families. That matters." Torino spat blood onto the warehouse floor. "How touching. The dirty cop finds religion at the last moment." Martinez moved until she was standing beside Hartwell, her young face hard with determination. "Marcus, give me your weapon." "What?" "I said give me your weapon. Right now." Confused, Hartwell handed her his service pistol. Martinez took it, then looked directly at Torino with an expression of cold fury. "Vincent Torino," she said formally, "you're under arrest for the murders of Detective James Williams, Officer David Park, and Thomas Chen. You have the right to remain silent." As she continued reading the Miranda rights, Hartwell realized what she was doing. She was taking away his choice to become a killer, forcing him to remain a police officer instead of becoming the criminal Torino wanted him to be. When the SWAT team arrived to take Torino into custody, the crime boss looked back at Hartwell one final time. "This isn't over, Detective. Even behind bars, I have people, friends, and they'll remember what you've done here tonight." "Let them come," Martinez replied before Hartwell could speak. Detective Hartwell won't be facing them alone. As they led Torino away in handcuffs, Hartwell felt something he hadn't experienced in 5 years. Hope. The weight of his sins hadn't disappeared, and the road to redemption would be long and painful. But for the first time since his corruption began, he wasn't walking that road alone. The warehouse fell silent except for the distant sound of sirens and the steady drip of water from a broken pipe. In that silence, Marcus Hartwell began the process of learning how to be a police officer again. The hardest part was just beginning. 6 months after the warehouse raid, Detective Marcus Hartwell sat in a federal courthouse, his hands folded in his lap as he waited to testify against the last of Vincent Torino's criminal network. The past half year had been a gauntlet of depositions, grand jury hearings, and sleepless nights as prosecutors built their cases against 43 individuals connected to the corruption conspiracy. His testimony had already helped convict Torino himself, who received 3 consecutive life sentences without parole. 2 judges, 7 police officers, 4 prosecutors, and dozens of associates had pleaded guilty or been convicted at trial. The city's criminal justice system was slowly healing from the cancer that had nearly consumed it. But the cost of that healing had been devastating. Hartwell's career was over. He'd been stripped of his badge and pension, facing federal charges for his role in the conspiracy. His plea agreement would send him to prison for 5 years, with the possibility of early release for continued cooperation. His house was gone, sold to pay legal fees. His ex-wife had changed her phone number. He had lost everything except the fragile possibility of redemption. Marcus, Officer Sarah Martinez, now Detective Martinez, promoted for her role in bringing down the conspiracy, sat beside him on the courthouse bench. "You ready for this?" The final hearing would determine the sentences for the last 3 defendants. A judge who had fixed cases, a prosecutor who had buried evidence, and a police lieutenant who had eliminated witnesses. Their convictions would close the book on the largest corruption case in the city's history. "I keep thinking about them," Hartwell said quietly. "Williams, Park, Chen. Their families were in the courtroom yesterday when Torino got sentenced. Mrs. Williams looked right at me when they read the verdict." Martinez nodded. "What did you see in her eyes?" Hartwell was quiet for a long moment. "Not forgiveness. Not yet. But maybe acknowledgement. Like she knew I was trying to make it right." "That's more than you had 6 months ago." "Is it enough?" Before Martinez could answer, the bailiff called Hartwell's name. As he stood to enter the courtroom for his final testimony, she caught his arm. "Marcus, I want you to know something. The night you confessed everything to me, when you could have killed me or disappeared, that took courage. The man who decided to wear that wire, who risked everything to stop Torino, that's who you really are. Not the corrupt cop you became, but the officer you chose to be when it mattered most." Hartwell felt tears threatening but blinked them back. 5 years in federal prison, Sarah. That's what courage got me. 5 years to prove you can be the man you were meant to be. And when you get out, there will be people waiting to help. You rebuild." "You?" "Me," she said simply. "And others. Detective Williams's widow wants to meet with you after your sentencing. She has something to say, and I think you need to hear it." As Hartwell walked into the courtroom for the last time, as a witness, he thought about the long road ahead. Prison would be brutal. Corrupt cops didn't fare well behind bars. But for the first time in years, he had something more valuable than money or safety or comfort. He had purpose. His testimony that day was precise, devastating, and complete. The 3 defendants received sentences totaling 68 years in prison. As the judge thanked him for his cooperation and courage, Hartwell realized that justice wasn't just about punishment, it was about the choice to do right when everything else demanded wrong. Outside the courthouse, Martinez walked with him toward the federal marshals who would transport him to prison. "Detective Williams' widow wanted me to give you this," she said, handing him a sealed envelope. Inside was a photograph. Detective James Williams with his 4 grandchildren at Christmas, all of them wearing matching sweaters and laughing at something off camera. On the back, someone had written, "He always believed people could change, even at the end, even about you. Helen Williams." Hartwell closed his eyes and let the tears come. When he opened them, Martinez was still there, waiting. "See you in 5 years, partner," she said. "See you in 5 years." As the federal marshal's van pulled away from the courthouse, Marcus Hartwell watched the city disappear behind him. Somewhere in that city, 3 families had finally received justice for their murdered loved ones. Dozens of other families would get closure for cases that had been buried in corruption. The system he had helped break was healing. It wasn't absolution. That would take a lifetime to earn. But it was a beginning, and sometimes a beginning is enough.